नमस्कार, आज अस परतिए जुड़े दे हैं ते आज साडा part 3 of the same topic, which is seeds of terrorism and failure of leadership. I would now hand you over to Mr. Harban Singh Sambyal ji. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Today we have already entered into a phase. Lalit, is my internet connection all right?
Yes, sir. It's perfectly fine.
Today we have entered into a phase where we can look at the problem either from a very objective angle or from a very personal and emotional perspective. As far as I am concerned, I try to be as far as possible very objective in my analysis. And I urge all the viewers to restrain their emotions, restrain their feelings, and before you can objectively analyze what happened, that they bear a couple of things in their mind. I've already spoken about them in a little bit detail. I'll just remind all of you regarding those points. One is that 1979 is a watershed year. That is the year when number of changes took place all over the world, which also impacted India and Kashmir in particular. The most important being the Islamic Revolution, and equally important was the rise of the religiosity in communist countries because of a new pope, a Polish pope. And as a consequence, the world over people of various religions, they also felt that some kind of revivalism is needed in their religions too. Hinduism also got revived after 1979. In the mid-80s, a new kind of wave began, not only in the country, but wherever the Indians were living, in whichever part of the globe. A renewed interest was generated in the religion. So revivalism, fundamentalism is not just peculiar to Islam or to Christianity, but primarily to all religions, including the Hindu religion. The second aspect is that I am of the firm opinion that democracy can take care of most of our problems, particularly separatism. If there is a vibrant democratic society, separatism can be accommodated within it. It will be acting as a safety valve. They will speak. There will always be a small group of people who are dissatisfied, who desire to break away from the mainstream. But if they are accommodated, that is, if they are allowed to speak out their mind and use the democratic platform to express their opinions, sooner or later they get neutralized. Third important aspect which I ask of you to remember is a great lesson which we have been given by Mahabharata. That lesson is that if victory becomes the sole goal, then ethics and morality, they are the first casualty. I'll give you the examples. Before the war was to begin, both Kauravas and the Pandavas, they sat down and they drew a code of war. what are the rules for conducting the war. But very soon, we see that all the rules, one by one, they were flouted either by the Pandavas or by the Kauravas. It began with the killing of Abhimanyu, a boy surrounded by a number of Maharathi, number of warriors, and the lone boy, even when he was unarmed, he was slain. So this was a break from the code of conduct, code of war, and after that, there is no stopping. With this incident set by the Kauravas, Pandavas used the power of Ghatotkacha. It was known that Ghatotkacha, his power increased as darkness descended. And he was asked to carry on the war even after the sunset. It was then that Karan had to use that weapon which he had left, which he had reserved for Arjun. Then the killing, the slaying of Bhurishrava. The code of conduct was that there will be only 1-to-1 fight. And Bhurishrava from the Kaurav side was in combat with Satyaki, the close friend, bosom friend of Arjun. And there came a point when Bhurishrava he raised his hand with the sword to strike and kill Satyaki. At that moment, Krishna instigated Arjun to intervene, that look, your bosom friend is being killed. So Arjun shot an arrow and cut the arm of Bhurishrava. It was then that Satyaki slayed him. I can go on and on and on till the point when Duryodhana was killed in an unfair battle by Bhim. In this also, when the center and the state regional party, they entered into a deadly fight for power, gradually all the rules of democracy were thrown out of the window. Regional party did not hesitate from using separatism as a tool, and Government of India did not hesitate from using the constitutional powers, the constitutional institutions to fight or oust that regional party from power. All these three things, they happened in the state. There was Islamic revivalism. Democracy failed to accommodate separatism, and therefore it became bigger and bigger threat. And finally, all the rules of democratic life, they were also torn to pieces. Last time when we stopped, we had reached the point where Farooq Abdullah was ousted by Jagmohan, Governor Jagmohan, in what I say, an unfair manner. No rule was followed. In all democracies, the floor of the house is the only place where the strength has to be tested. It was not done in case of Farooq. Whether Farooq was competent or not, that is a separate question. The fact is that he was a democratically elected chief minister. And you have to build a case. If you want to oust a chief minister, then breakdown of law and order, that is the best tool. that constitution has broken down in the state. But then that point should be reached. History has to be convinced that this is the right step to take at this moment. Gul Shah became the chief minister. The worst thing that happened was that during this period, the most vicious kind of elements, they got promoted. I have repeatedly said that Pakistan in itself cannot be a threat to India. India is a threat to India. We create situations where Pakistan can use an opportunity. So we had created that opportunity. We had an incompetent chief minister, a corrupt chief minister, and adding to it was the fact that all kind of anti-national people, separatists, terrorists, religious bigots, and fringe groups, new Islamic groups, they started growing in the state. This went on till 1986, till finally the Congress lost its patience and support was withdrawn to him. For a short while, the state was put under the governor's rule. Jagmohan was still the governor. And before the expiry of 6 months, because after 6 months, there is a constitutional process that has to take place in order to extend the governor's rule. Congress and National Conference, they entered into an alliance. It is called Grand Alliance. Political scientists will tell us that what is, they'll define Grand Alliance for us as an alliance to keep a more dangerous segment of the society emerging as a powerful group in the assembly or the parliament. But in this case, let us look at it in a very dispassionate manner. In 1983, there was National Conference, there was Congress, there was BJP, and there were fringe Islamic groups. All were contesting. And yet, Congress and National Conference as operants, they had got almost 90% of the seats, 87% of the votes, and democracy was there. Everybody acknowledged that. But when Congress and National Conference, they forged that Grand Alliance, what they did was that they divided the whole of the state, 60% National Conference, 40% Congress. The result was all other fringe groups, smaller groups, they were ousted from the battle. It was not an alliance against a common enemy. It was an alliance against the electorate. Democracy thrives only when there is competition, only when competing ideas are put before the people and they decide. In this case, when the two main contestants, they come together, where is the contest then? Contest after that. There is no contest. And there being no contest, the consequence was that all those smaller groups, fringe elements, they felt that they had been deprived of a fair chance of getting into the assembly. That they could have voiced the concerns of a section which they represented, but that chance had been taken away from them unfairly. The election of 87 is therefore very significant. It pushed the state into the laps of Pakistan. All those people, the most, I would say, a strange kind of a case is that of Yasin Malik, a man of contradictions, a very strong Kashmiri, very committed Kashmiri, and yet his organization was responsible for the kidnapping of Dr. Rubaya Sayyid and killing of many others. So how do we reconcile this thing? We had pushed these young people to a point where they thought that we will pick up the weapon. This system is not fair to us, so we have to fight the system. We have to destroy the system. So whoever is willing to help them, they were willing to seek their help. It is true that we cannot defend Farooq Abdullah after that. Between 87 and 90, what happened was the most shameful chapter of the history of Kashmir. Walter Lawrence has given a number of examples how unfairly the Kashmiri Pandits were treated by the Afghan rulers. He gives us two very abhorrent examples. One was that it was a common sight that Kashmiri Pandit was caught and tied to a stone with a pitcher of filth on his head into the Dal Lake, and then standing by the lakeside, people would throw stones at the pitcher, hitting it. So not only would the Pandit be blinded with that filth, but also die of drowning. Another very common game for the Pathans was that they encouraged Kashmiri Muslims that if they are walking on the street and they see a Kashmiri Pandit, they can ride his back and he will have to carry him to a certain point. This was, he says, Walter Lawrence, it was a common sight. The fact remains that this kind of treatment Kashmiri Pandits had begun ever since Kashmir slipped into the hands of Islamic rulers. Except for the Badshah, no other ruler has been fair to the Kashmiri Pandits. And that is why they have gradually migrated. By 1947, if there was still a sizable number of Kashmiris in the valley, it was because of the fact that since the first quarter of 19th century, the valley was ruled first by the Sikhs for a short period, then for about 100 years by the Dogras, a Hindu ruler. It was during this period that the Kashmiri Pandits got their security. It's another matter that the Kashmiri Pandits also do not really acknowledge the role of either the Sikhs or the Dogras in their security. They presume that this has to be there. This is the most kind thing which I can say for them is that about this aspect is that they presume that security had to come to them, so they got it. There's never a word of gratitude or thanks that it was during this period that we thrived. Anyway, that is a separate thing. But now what was happening was in an India, free India, ruled by a democratic constitution, this big section became the target of terrorism. Jagmohan has given in great detail how things started deteriorating in the valley. And he begins with a number of explosions which started taking place. And the worst year was 1989. First explosion took place in Lal Chowk, a Maruti van that exploded. 11 people got injured, including one woman. That was on October 27, 1988. Then on 13 July 1989, a CRPF bus was targeted. 2 soldiers died and 10 were injured. On 17 July 1989, JKLF claimed responsibility for this explosion. On July 20, now look at the frequency. On July 20, there was an explosion in the ladies' room of Khayyam Cinema. On 14th August, the Kashmiris celebrated the Independence Day of Pakistan with great fanfare. The next day, when the Indian Independence Day was to be observed, it was marked with protest demonstrations, hoisting of the black flags, burning of the national flag, and at night, not only were the street lights switched off, but all the lights of the secretariat, they too were switched off. 8th September was the death anniversary of Sheikh Abdullah. But such was the condition by then that it could not be celebrated in the manner in which it was earlier, and only under heavy security, prayers could be offered only inside the mausoleum. So we had reached this point by 8th September. On 14th September, a further low was reached when Tikka Lal Taplu, a vice president of Bharatiya Janata Party, he was gunned down on 14th September. Now this killing needs to be analyzed. Why was Taplu killed? Why was he targeted? Some people would obviously say that the killing of the Pandits started with this killing. But may I suggest that the killing of Taplu was very significant because it sent a signal to the Kashmiri Pandits that you have betrayed us. How and why? Because this was the first instance when Kashmiri Pandit had been targeted for siding with India. Taplu was not just a representative of BJP. Taplu was representing that idea which believed in the accession of the state with India and in the oneness of the country. That idea was being targeted. He's not just Taplu the Kashmiri Pandit. He's Taplu the Indian. He's Taplu the idea of India. He's Taplu the idea of the national flag. After that, we will notice that number of killings took place, not only of Kashmiri Pandits, but the Muslims also. We'll come to that gradually. Jagmohan believes that the um, killing of Taplu was a signal that Kashmiri Pandits have to be killed. But I'll draw your attention to the fact that soon after Taplu's killing, JKLF, they issued a press release. In the press release, they said that all those who are supporting India or the idea of India or accession of the state with India, they are their targets. They will not be allowed to live in the valley. Another significant thing which happened simultaneously was that a Kashmiri Muslim, Ejaz Dar, was killed outside the house of DIG Watali, the same Watali which I think I told in one of my lectures that he was instrumental, according to the late Sajjad Lone, Abdul Ghani Lone, he was instrumental in rigging the election in favor of National Conference. Outside his residence, there was an encounter and Ejaz Dar was killed. Ejaz Dar, his funeral was the first funeral which began the march of funerals and who were celebrated in Kashmir as the martyrs. The cult of martyrdom in Kashmir began with the death of Ejaz Dar. So two things, killing of Taplu and martyrdom of Ejaz Dar. They were reaction to what had happened in the election of 1987. In 1987, Congress and National Conference, they had formed that grand alliance and ousted all other people from the democratic and representative space. So as a reaction to that, not only was Taplu, the representative of Indian symbol, eliminated, but also the death of a Kashmiri Muslim was celebrated as martyrdom. At about the same time, near Ramban, Shabir Shah was arrested. Now, Ramban, as you know, is on this side of the Banihal. And properly speaking, after being arrested, he should have been brought to Jammu. But for some strange reason, the DGP, Mr. Pandit, he directed that he be produced in the valley, in Srinagar. So the moment he was taken there, valley was paralyzed with strike. For 4 days, the valley remained paralyzed. And the period of genuine terror among the common people as well began with that. He was to be produced in the court of law. The AG refused to appear. He deputed his deputy attorney general. The deputy attorney general also excused himself. Then he was taken to Anantnag, that maybe somebody would appear on behalf of the government. Nobody did. This fear had by now settled in Kashmir. On October 26 and 27 again, there were massive protests, a complete strike. Why October 26 and 27? Obviously because of the accession and the arrival of the Indian Army in 1947. Now look at these people. Now who can be these people? These people cannot be Kashmiris, because the same Kashmiris had celebrated the arrival of the Indian army. They had their own Sherwani, Maqbool Sherwani, as their hero of 1947. There was a time when the Kashmiris would give more credit to Sherwani for saving the valley than to Brigadier Rajendra Singh or the Indian army. So what had changed? That now Kashmiris, they rose up in protest on those 2 days. This is something which all of us need to think. That after so many decades, how had we arrived at this point? Simply saying that it is the doing of Pakistan, sorry, sir, is beyond my comprehension. It cannot be. For so many decades, we have believed that Sherwani was a hero. And now suddenly, within 2 or 3 years, we must have done something terrible to that generation which was growing up, to push them away from that mainstream thought. So we have to introspect. We have to look inwards to find out how we reached here, why we reached here. On 4th November, Justice Judge N.K. Ganju, the judge who had presided over the court which had sentenced Maqbool Bhatt to death, he was gunned down. Now Maqbool Bhatt, he was a member of the JKLF. I understand that JKLF, they took their revenge. And this was the most opportune time when people had also either begun to remain distanced from the events which were taking place or complicit with the new generation. Strangely, it was in these circumstances that the Lok Sabha elections were held in J&K. So today, there are many people like me who wonder that what was the necessity of holding elections in the J&K then? Nothing could have been worse than holding elections at that point in time. The terrorists, the separatists, they gleefully accepted this opportunity. Here was an opportunity for them to gain, to come into limelight, because news spread all over the world of a coffin being placed outside the polling booth, that whoever casts the first vote, this coffin is for him. And in fact, on the coffin was a television set. Then you can pick up the television set if you cast the first vote, but then this coffin also will be yours. So nothing could have given them more publicity than this kind of opportunity. Congress, as expected, Congress had been, by that time, Congress had lost all moral grounds all over the country. The Bofors had destroyed their credibility. All the political parties, they had come together to oppose, to oust Congress from power. But the tragic part is that this was their only goal. The opposition parties had no vision. They had no roadmap how to take the country forward. Or we have serious issues in one of our states bordering two enemies. How is that to be dealt? They had absolutely no clue. None of them had any clue. And it was in these circumstances that Mufti Muhammad Syed, who had been appointed as the Home Minister of India, in the quixotic belief that if we have a Muslim Home Minister, then many of our communal problems will automatically get solved. And that the Kashmir problem would just vanish, just like that, simply because a Kashmiri Muslim is the Home Minister of the country. But that abduction, kidnapping of Dr. Rubaia Saeed, that rocked the valley. The fact is that there were 30 Muslim scholars and organizations in India and Pakistan who had given the statement that this act of kidnapping a woman is un-Islamic. It cannot be forgiven. And yet, the Home Minister of the country refused to be the Home Minister of the country till the time when his daughter was released. And how was she to be released? She was to be released only if certain number of terrorists in jail were also released. For once, Farooq Abdullah stood up strongly. He said that if they in any way harm the young female doctor, then Kashmiri society will not forgive these separatists. So we must not give in. But ultimately, the father of the girl prevailed over the Home Minister of the country. And terrorists were released, and Dr. Rubaia Saeed also got her freedom. But this galvanized the JKLF. This galvanized the terrorists. This had been preceded by a number of other warnings also. In the month of June 1989, all over the valley, wherever urban population was living, pamphlets had been distributed, speeches had been made from the pulpits of the mosques that women need to be following certain code of dress and behavior. It was the same which the Islamists had been demanding in Saudi Arabia. It was a period when the beards have started growing. Now my generation is the one which was never encouraged to wear any external mark of religion or community. The belief was our own private, personal, family affair, not to be displayed. But now gradually a new wave had begun where your identity, your religious identity was blared from loudspeakers. This was also a period when Rajiv Gandhi, who had got a record majority in the parliament, overturned the Supreme Court judgment regarding the talaq of Shah Banu and did not interfere, refused to interfere in the triple talaq. This pushed the Hindus to the brink. It was then that the Hindu revivalism came out into the open and the movement for temple, Ram temple, that gained momentum. now we know where all that has taken us. BJP has carried forward that movement. Triple Talaq has been made a crime now. Ram Temple, with the help of support of Supreme Court, will be taking shape today or tomorrow. But will all these things solve our problems? That is a separate issue. But my point was that how all these things, the events which had taken place in 79, had now began to affect the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Then arrived 19th of January 1990. Now this is a day that can never go away from the memory, collective memory of Kashmiri Pandits. The warning signals were already there. In September 1989, the Baba Reshi shrine near Baramulla that had been put to fire. It was a clear-cut message that Kashmiriyat was dead, or that this was not the doing of Kashmiris, but Pakistanis had gained so much of confidence that they had now started directly participating in terrorist activities. On 14th of October was the day of Eid Miladul Nabi. This is a day of celebration, and on this particular day in 1989, there was a huge procession. People had gathered at Badshah Chowk. From there they moved towards the Eidgah, and as they were moving, women were showering those sugary snacks which are showered on a marriage procession. A new kind of culture encouraged by the Kashmiri people, common people, had started taking roots. Finally, the central government took some action and they brought back Jagmohan as governor of the state. So it's a matter of record that Farooq Abdullah had made it very clear to the government of India that if Jagmohan is brought back, he will resign. And this is exactly what he did. Jagmohan was appointed on 19th January 1990, and Farooq Abdullah resigned simultaneously. And he left not only Srinagar, he left the country as well and went to England. He remained there till things had not started improving. So now the field was open. That night on 19th, suddenly all the mosques, they started blaring songs of so-called freedom. Those freedom songs, they could be heard everywhere. In between, there were speeches, there were stories, or there were songs extolling the virtues of those Islamic warriors who had fought the Crusades against the Christians in the Middle Ages. Not only that, Rahul Pandita, I read his book about that period. it is there is a blood clot on the moon. That book vividly describes not only that night, but the tragedy of the Kashmiri Pandits. He says that they spent the whole of the night in terror. And many other Kashmiri Pandits, they have also written about that night. And it was a celebration for the people of Srinagar and other such places, urban places. People came out of their homes, lit bonfires on the roads, placed rugs, and there was sloganeering all through the night. Now, this is terrifying. And then in between, one could hear slogans which would say very clearly that the whole of Kashmir has to be converted into Pakistan. All the Pandits, they have to leave the valley, but without the Panditines. The Panditines will remain there. They will be converted by these Muslims, owned by them, and the Pandits would either be eliminated or they would leave the valley. Now, this is an existentialist fear, and it's very difficult for any community to digest it. This fear has been expressed by almost all Pandits who were there at that time. And one of them describes, again very vividly, that how simultaneously there were no mobile phones then, how simultaneously phones had begun to run in all the Pandit homes. And there was only one question on the lips of all the Pandits. Are you safe? Is everybody safe? By this time, Governor Jagmohan had already taken oath. He was being called by these Pandits. His office was being called, seeking help. So what they hoped that this is Srinagar, the army is here, the BSF is here, somebody would come to rescue us. But the fact is, the army does not intervene like that. That paramilitary forces, they do not intervene like that. But a person who is about to die, he has hopes. He hopes that any person who is in authority, he will be of some help to him or her. Here, nothing happened. So they spent the night in terror, and in the morning, the exodus that began. Now, may I point out to you that in 1991, Jagmohan wrote a long letter to Rajiv Gandhi before his death in April, reminding him that in 1989 he had written him that the situation was getting worse in the valley, that some kind of action needs to be taken. Now remember, Jagmohan is a governor. He was a governor. He is a governor. He was a governor again. And then after he was removed, then he started writing the book also, My Frozen Turbulence, and campaigning also against Rajiv Gandhi in particular. So in that letter, open letter, he writes that I wrote to you that I read that out, the relevant part. The situation is fast deteriorating. It has almost reached a point of no return. For the last 5 days, there have been violence, arson, firing, hartal, casualties, and whatnot. Things have truly fallen apart. Talking of the Irish crisis, British Prime Minister Disraeli had said, "It is potatoes one day and the Pope the next." Similar is the present position in Kashmir. Yesterday it was Maqbool Bhatt. Today it is the satanic verses. Tomorrow it will be repression day. Now this is the diagnosis of a person who had remained the governor of the valley for 5 years. And during that period, he should have known Kashmir very well. He should have understood the problems and everything and all the developments that were taking place in an objective manner. But this is his assessment. That Kashmir problem is like the Irish problem. Now, may I remind the viewers that what was this Irish problem? The Irish problem began in the 19th century. When Disraeli and Gladstone, they were the prime ministers of England turn by turn. And Disraeli was the hawkish prime minister. So these damning words, derogatory phrases, that today there is potato, tomorrow there is Pope. Yes, potato was an issue in Ireland. It was because of the potatoes that there was large-scale migration from Ireland to USA. It was because of the potatoes that the Irish people rose against the authority of England. And it was because of the Pope that Ireland had to be finally divided. Jagmohan did not understand this thing. For him, it was a very good dialogue. It's a very good quote. You feel very macho when you listen to one of your leaders speaking like that. But it was the most foolish assessment of a situation. What was the fate of Ireland? The fate of the Ireland was that it got divided. Now, was he suggesting that Kashmir has to be divided? That the only solution to the problem of Kashmir is that it should be divided? So I have raised this question a number of times. I have never got an answer, and now there's, you know, that he's no longer there. Though when I first wrote about this, he did write a letter of protest to the editor of the Tribune. But I had stood my ground then, I stand my ground today. That this is not how a leader analyzes his people and his state. On that night, he did not act. In the morning, another tragedy occurred. If the night of the 19th was a tragic, terrifying night for the Kashmiri Pandits, the morning brought a tragedy for the Kashmiri Muslims. That night, there had been raids in the Chota Bazar area, and consequently, people had come out to protest against those raids. And when they reached one of the bridges over Jhelum, the CRPF people opened fire. A number of people were killed because of the firing. Kashmiri claims that many more had jumped into the river and they died of drowning. So I'll not go into the numbers game. Even 5 deaths are too many in police firing. Firing took place. Now there are two communities, both the major communities, they are aggrieved. One is aggrieved because it is in danger of its life and property. And the other is aggrieved that unfairly it has been targeted by the police and many of its people have been killed. So this was the situation at that point in time. Finally, with Farooq Abdullah away, no democratic leader in the valley, Mufti Muhammad Sayyid, he had lost all credibility because of his daughter's kidnapping and the way he had buckled under the pressure. The governor, in my opinion, did not understand the valley. The soldiers, they know a simple thing, that they are defending the country. They are defending the national flag. So for them, everything is no nonsense. If you bring in paramilitary forces in any situation, do not expect kid gloves to be used by them. Army or the paramilitary forces, they are taught to use violence if there is a threat. So claiming that human rights have been violated, human rights will get violated as long as the political class fails in performing its duties, abdicates its authority, and leaves it to the forces to do the dirty work for it. That's not how states are run. But this is what we did. And another thing, let me tell you, there are a number of killings after that, Kashmiri Pandit killings. But before that, when the killings had started, the National Conference leaders and the Congress leaders in the valley, one by one, ground workers, they had paid advertisements in the local newspapers announcing their disassociation with either the Congress or the National Conference. Such was the fear not only among the Pandits, but also among those Muslims who were aligned with Congress or National Conference, both of which had accepted the accession of India, or accession of the state with India. Herein comes the element of Pakistan, that Pakistan had now fully started using, exploiting the situation. Because we had failed. We had created not only an opening, we had opened the floodgates for Pakistan. One of the most tragic deaths which took place was of Mr. Ganju, who was from the telecommunications department. Obviously, he was representing Government of India. He was targeted. One of his neighbors told him that in the mosque he had heard that in the hit list his name was there. So they spent the night in Tyre, the husband and the wife. In the morning came the knock at 9 o'clock. The wife opened the door and somehow she managed to fob off the people who had come. But she could see that outside, when they were going back, someone from the neighborhood whispered something to their ears, and they came back, got into the house, rushed straight to the attic, where there was a drum of rice, and Ganju was hiding in that drum. He was shot dead in that drum. His wife too was killed. There was another case of one Mr. Sarvanand Premi, a teacher, a scholar, and a poet, and who as a youngster had also participated in the Quit Kashmir movement against Maharaja Hari Singh. So he was very confident that nothing can happen to him. Everybody said that you get out of this place. He said, no, I had participated in that movement, so no harm will come his way. But at night, the terrorists came and they asked him to pick up his luggage and come with them. His son was also there. He saw his old father picking up the luggage. He said that he will carry the luggage. So both the father and the son, they came out. In the morning, their bodies were found shot dead and with nails in their heads. In another case of a professor of agriculture college, Sopore, the professor was also a non-political kind of a person. So he too was very confident nothing would happen to him. But again the knock came. And when the knock came, a cousin of his was also there. His wife was also there. All three were dragged out. The cousin somehow managed to slip away and he jumped into the Jhelum and swam across to safety to narrate what had happened. Both were shot dead. The bodies thrown in the river. The husband's body was recovered. His wife's body was never found. There are many other cases, but the most tragic case, and at that point I'll stop here today, was that of Girja. It is tragic because it was highly unavoidable and the whole blame goes to the administration for her death. She had migrated with her family, but being the sole bread earner of the family, the rule was that the salary could be drawn only from that place where you have been appointed. So every month she had to come from Jammu to Srinagar, Bandipora, to gather her salary. One month, her cousin told her that things were getting hot and he was also migrating, so she should also take care of herself. Next month when she came, the cousin had migrated and she stayed with a Muslim neighbor. In the morning, she was picked up from that. When she was to come back to Jammu, she was picked up from that Muslim neighbor's home in a taxi, raped in the moving vehicle. And unfortunately for her, she recognized the voice of one of her assailants. And when she called him out, he got panicky. And what they did was, they took her to a sawmill. They cut her into pieces. Now my question is to those who apologize for Jagmohan, who say that he was not at all at fault. May I ask, that was this rule not known to the government? And who's responsible for that? This should have been the first priority, that so many people have migrated, government employees. How should their salaries be deposited? Why do they have to come from Jammu or Delhi or wherever they are to the place of appointment to gather their salary? So this is the terror which struck the valley. Now, this is a tragedy. It's not a one-sided tragedy that only the Kashmiri Pandits have suffered. The tragedy is that the whole of Kashmir has suffered. We can say that the youth is misguided, but the fact is that the youth has suffered. Now, what is the lifespan of a Kashmiri terrorist? After crossing the border back to India, within 10 or 15 days, that young boy is killed. And I know fan of Gauhar Gilani. He has also written a lot about the tragedy of Kashmir. But one sentence of his haunts me all the time. And that is that we cannot have a discourse in which the funerals of our youth takes the central place, where mourning is a constant process. So the suffering has been on both sides. So what happened after that, we'll be the next time. I think overshot my time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was again a very insightful session. And as we all know, on this 19 January marks the 31 years of exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, our brethren. And I am, it was again, we all know about these incidents. I would not say stories because this all is truth. Some of us who were there around at that time know it more than some of us who don't know it. But being here, working closely with a lot of Kashmiri Pandits in UK, I have firsthand heard these stories, and it is very sad and appalling that in today's world and time also these things have happened and happened in our times. So opening the forum to everybody who's been attending the session today. If anybody has any questions, this is the time. Please bring forward your questions to Harbans sir.
Lalit, may I?
Ji, please.
Thank you so much. Well, Sabral Sahab, I must congratulate you for a wonderful talk, and rather I wanted to say bone-chilling talk. And since I have experienced it quite a few times, because one of my 3 PhDs on the same subject. Now, besides that, Lalit, for your information, Lakshmi Kaul has started a campaign, and which I am also part of that. Okay, besides all that, these are a bit of emotional issues, I won't go. But Sabral Sahab, purely from the researcher's point of view and an intellectual point of view, there is one question which has been bothering me on this for last almost 20 years. And if you come to my home sometimes, like I can see a beautiful library behind you, I'll show you why this thing also. And one book written by Mr. Jagmohan, is this thick. Sorry, I can't show you because my camera is not working. The way the chapters it is in, that means me and my team has, dissected it throughout to find the answer to one question. And though you try to touch that, and I would only restrict myself to that particular section. Though Mr. Jagmohan keeps meeting me at least once or twice in a month in India International Center in Delhi, and they are pleasantly customary, good morning, sir, and all. I don't have a heart to ask him, but maybe one day when my patience gets out, I will ask him the same. Now, whatever happened that night, you read the book.
He's no longer there.
Where? Where is he not there?
Yes, please.
I said you read out the portions of the letter that he wrote. That is a proof that he understood what the position was. And as you brought out by you also, the man of his stature, his experience, he would have definitely have entire intelligence agencies by his side. He knew what was happening. Now, question is why he did not control it. Like you said that some of the people who talk in his favor, they talk about human rights and blah, 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 blah. But my question is very simple. My question is that he was to control that situation as an administrator through his district administration. But he chose to send them out and wait for the tamasha and whatever happened. Now, I am an army guy. Like you mentioned, army people mean business. Yes, we do mean business, maybe even paramilitary also. But for the benefit of the viewers, of course, General Jawal is here, he would know what I'm talking about. There is a graduated response for everything. Moment certain intelligence input is there with you, and you know something's going to happen, then you have to employ the police, the paramilitary, and the military. And there's a graduated response. And even if when the military is there is something called, there is a 31 Saveria in Srinagar. One of the prime responsibility of that commander, the brigadier, now as major level officer, is to maintain law and order if requested by the administration. Now, when that happens, there is a proper procedure the army follows. Of course, there's human rights thing can come in. All these are catered into that SOP, the standing operating procedure. So that has been done. Now, I fail to understand, maybe if you read somewhere, you can tell us, why did Mr. Jagmohan not follow that procedure? Why did he not trust? He had an entire core headquarters, a Saveria under him, who could have given any amount of help. Now, question is, he did not do this. Now, if we say that he was not aware of this, because these rehearsals are conducted. If we say he was not aware of it, I'm not buying that argument. Now, why he did not do? Was he being instructed by somebody from Delhi not to do? Was he being instructed by somebody from Pakistan not to do? Or was he had some personal agenda for not doing it? What is your assessment on that, sir?
Thank you very much, Brigadier. I was of the firm opinion, and the day when I was speaking about the events of 1979, and I spoke about the siege of Makkah, I also mentioned one thing, that the biggest flaw in dealing with that situation in Makkah was that it was treated as a law and order administrative problem. It was not an administrative problem. It was not a law and order problem. It was a problem, a challenge thrown by the idea. An idea can be met only with a superior idea. An idea cannot be negated by greater force. Jagmohan, I'll concede he was a good administrator, but he is not a statesman. He knew nothing about statesmanship. Anyone who quotes, who compares Kashmir with Ireland and invokes the authority of Disraeli, the most imperialistic Prime Minister of England, I am not prepared to listen to any argument in his favor, because it's basically flawed. His philosophy is basically flawed. It cannot yield any good. Now, what is his fame to greatness? His fame to greatness is Mata Vaishno Devi. The reforms which were done, if you recall, General Saab would remember very well, Dr. Karan Singh ji, as the trustee of Dharmarth Trust, he challenged the takeover of Mata Vaishno Devi shrine. But then gradually when he saw the kind of changes that had been brought by the new system, he withdrew his case. That they had done a better job, so let them do it. Anybody who can do a good job is welcome there. But being a good Hindu, being an administrator, though in principle I still cannot reconcile myself to the fact that in a democratic republic which has various religions, which is a composite cultured state, a state should have any role in religion. Religion should remain the domain of an individual or the individual groups. But this has been the trend. Again, I say this trend began with what happened in Saudi Arabia and what happened in Poland. The emergence of the Pope Polish origin Pope. That inspired other religions also, other religious groups also, to look inwards, to improve themselves, and to move out to the rest of the society to exert their authority and their existence. That far, if that is the purpose of a politician, of an administrator, then fine, he's a great man. But if it is the fact where you have to deal with the fate of a people, then he has been a miserable failure. You are rightly pointed out that why did he not call? He should have called. That was a failure. Why did he allow them to, or encourage them to cross the Banihal? If you wanted a separate colonies for them, they should have been given all the facilities, all the security. He should have asked them to come to the Raj Bhavan. He gave shelter after all. Ur Shah and his supporters in 1984, they were sheltered there. They would have gladly spent the night there with bonfires on the lawns of the Raj Bhavan or any secure place. But when you don't take care of them, they have no option but to flee. And in this, again, I pointed out earlier also, I repeat again, that the best book that I have written about the tragedy of Kashmiri Pandits is by Kshama Kaul, Dardpur, a Hindi novel. It's a novel, but it's not a novel, it's a history. It's not just a history of 1990 when the Kashmiris migrated, but she goes back into the earlier times. She even looks into the treatment of women in Hindu society. And she holds Lord Shiva as guilty because Parvati was the first woman to be banished from her home, though for a short while. It came as a shock to me, but this is how so deeply she has been involved in this tragedy, and so deeply has the Kashmiri psyche been involved. Now I'm shocked, I'm pained also that why should this thing dominate your life so much that you forget, you exclude many of the good things of life. But they have suffered. I cannot tell them that stop your suffering, stop shedding tears now. A person who has suffered, he will go on shedding tears for as long as he does not completely purge out the emotions. But Jagmohan, Brigadier Vijay Sagar, I'm sorry to say, but he is guilty. He is guilty of neglect.
Sir, I would reiterate a point here. Like just saying that he's guilty of neglect, I don't think that is absolving him from that. My point is very simple, and I'm asking a administrative point, being an officer in the government administration. I have an administration, and there is a standard operating procedure which is rehearsed twice or thrice a year. There are meetings, discussions, and physical rehearsals being doing it. Once he had that letter which he wrote to Rajiv Gandhi, it gives me a clear idea that he had ample intelligence about what was happening. He knew exactly what was happening. Why he did not invoke this provision? Was it under pressure from somebody else? Or maybe he had lost his senses at that time. This is what I want to research purely from the academic point of view, not to sort of blame him for that.
I have not come across any evidence which gives a clue, but the fact is that I know many of the politicians of that era in Government of India, And I know that they hardly knew what is Kashmir, or they were hardly bothered about Kashmir. Their sole purpose was to oust Rajiv Gandhi. And having succeeded that, all problems for them were solved. Jagmohan, because for 5 years he was very popular in Jammu, how do you presume he'll be popular in Kashmir also? And look at the situation. It was for them to take a call. He did not take a call. And there is no SOP in the civilian administration, to the best of my knowledge. Army has it, but not civilians. They just allow things to drift. And this is what happened here. Drift was the rule of the day. And he's not a politician or a statesman. The worst part is we needed a statesman at that point of time. And we got a lesser human being.
Right, sir, with a confirmation from you. So next time when I meet him in IIT, I'll ask him the same question again. Even if he
He's
doesn't.
no longer there, he's dead. He has
When
passed
did
away.
he die, sir? When? I'm not aware.
A couple of years now.
Sir?
I think in 2019.
Oh,
Not 19, 18.
Oh, that's sad.
19, yes, 2019.
2019, August probably, I met him May or June. That's the last one I went there.
Well, even that time, he was not very well. He was just.
Yeah, I know, but he was a fragile person that time. वो चाय शाय पीने आते थे वहाँ पे IIT ना तो बात होती थी. But anyway, this question still baffles me. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of army guys also, civilian administrative officers also were there, but nobody's been able to give an answer to this question. That he chose to arrange transport, shelter. I mean, he went in exercise to send the Pandits out. I said, why not protect them there when he has so much of wherewithal, which is tested, tried, rehearsed by the army and the civil together. I don't know why he didn't do
that. Brigadier, you want me to say everything?
No, sir, you must tell us whatever. It's an in-house discussion. You must tell us. At least we will know, get an insight. Because it's actually rocking my mind for a long time. I said, where is the answer to this question? Because आपने बोला ना administration में कोई नहीं करता. But I'm telling you, I have rehearsed it. I myself rehearsed it. We have a discussion. We have joint meetings. We rehearse it physically. So saying that probably they were oblivious of it, this is a very, very difficult argument to take.
Brigadier Vijay Sagar, I think some other time we'll discuss this.
Okay, I'll give you a call maybe tomorrow sometime.
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you so much. Is there any other questions, sir? I think Govardhan sir wants to say something.
Can you hear me?
Ji Jamwal sir, we can hear you.
Yes sir, everybody.
अच्छा, पहले ते अरबाज जी तुसी किताब तौले तौले लिखो ये जड़ियां अच्छियां है साफ गल्लां लोकें नहीं पता बड़ी सारी गल्लां दा पता ये किताब लिख के मैं आखना आनी कुदा डोगरी च भी ट्रांसलेशन करवा के लोकें पता लगे आज थोड़ी लोकें बिल्कुल अंधेरे च अज भी अंधेरे च पहली गल दूसरा है कि जेड़ा किश तुसी आज बयान कीता I was there on that day and I went to Jagmohan ji in the Raj Bhavan. I said, Pandits should never come out of the valley. Agar abhi bhi mauka hai, inko wapas le jao. And give them all the best accommodation wherever they are with full security because they were the only eyes and ears also of the entire valley. Nobody else would tell you. I know how difficult it was to even collect the information for many years. I have served 3 times in the valley. I've served 3 times in Jammu all my life. And Vijay knows it, how difficult it was to get the information even. And the information was also dicey always. And it was sometimes double-edged also. However, what I want to say that in spite of all what happened, I blame myself, the army also. How can you let this happen when you have a lakhs of army, paramilitary forces deployed in every village? You are tracing even dogs, and you are finding out if anybody has entered the village. Do you think the army intelligence people did not know what was happening? If they did not know that the valley was on the boil, I will blame myself as the general of the army. Terrible. I failed to defend my country. Even if the Prime Minister was anti-Kashmir, that is BP Singh, even then I think we should have realized. Even the last Naik and Naik should have realized in the village going on a patrol, something is going to happen here and is much worse. We must inform the people, we must inform the administration. I don't see anywhere, I have inquired this, I have talked to many commanders, and I hold all the commanders responsible of that period. Whether he was a battalion commander, company commander, brigade commander. Now they say army doesn't move out unless it is ordered. Yes. But if you know that your house is being burnt, you will wait for the orders. I think that was a total failure of the army also, and the paramilitary forces also. What were they doing? You think it has happened overnight? Whatever came out on the night of the 19th, do you think it came out overnight, 24 hours? Months and months. And everybody knew it. If everybody knew it, what were we doing? I know it a few days back, my car was burnt in Rambagh, but that was a different thing. We even knew then that something was going to happen. But we also know that Farooq Abdullah allowed people to go and provided vehicles and police escort to go to across. And one day I told him, you are making a very serious mistake. He says, Janam Sahab, मैं ऐसे ठीक कर लूँगा, हाथों हैं क्या करेंगे? I said, no, we allowed the Nagas to go to China and we didn't stop them. And you know what happened? I was in Nagaland for 1 year. It became a hell of a problem. For 60 years, we've been, because these people, once they go out, they get blooded. Anyone who gets blooded once, it becomes a problem to hold him, to contain him, to control him. That's what happened. In fact, when Farooq had to leave, then he called me one day, 6 years later in Delhi. He said, Janam Sahab, how? Now things are working. I went there. The Satyam was there also. Omar was there in his house. I was invited by him. I'm giving you the truthful things. I told her, he said, Rasha, मैंने क्या बोला था? He virtually held his hand, this ears, and he said, मैंने गलती हो गई. I said, गलती, ऐसी गलती करके पूरे मुल्क को मुसीबत में डाल दिया है आपने. तो ये लीडरशिप की कमजोरियां हैं, ऊपर से भी हैं, आर्मी की गलतियां हैं. How can you imagine the refugees coming out in your own country? आज तक refugee बैठे हुए हैं 30 साल से. We have done. It's a central government failure, total failure in every respect of every, whether it is the Congress, whether it is BP Singh, even BJP, even Bajpayee. I say central government has failed everywhere as far as Kashmir is concerned. Now I'm glad something Modi is doing. I hope he succeeds, but you can see what is happening. Because we have allowed the things to drift for 70 years. We didn't control the valley. We never controlled them. Now, जरा सी बात होती है तो कुछ और ही बात निकल जाती है. तो ये बड़ी खराब हालत हुई है. और अभी भी we are not together. अभी भी कश्मीर और जम्मू का लड़ाई लगाई है. We are in trouble now. And I always say that कोई तरीका करके कश्मीर को बोलते आप अपना संभालो, जम्मू हम अपना संभालते हैं, हम दोनों भाई बन के रहेंगे. नहीं तो हम आपस में ही लड़ रहे हैं. We are every day fighting between जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, इन कश्मीर जम्मू, एक जरा सी कल बात हुई उधर, उन्होंने आईआईटी में, जम्मू की आईआईटी, वहां हम पगड़ी लगा के कन्वोकेशन होती है, वो कहीं से उधर से जाके अफगानिस्तानी टोपी लगा दी, वो चित्राली या कौन सी उसको बोलते हैं, जम्मू में शोर पड़ गया। हाँ, और लगा दी, और फिर लगा दी एज इफ जम्मू में कुछ है ही नहीं। और सारी सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी है, मेरे गांव में है सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी, पगड़ी लगाते हैं। ये जम्मू यूनिवर्सिटी में पगड़ियां लगाते हैं, गवर्नर जाता है, ये पता नहीं क्या हुआ, वो चित्राली कैप आ गई। आई रोट टू डॉक्टर जितेंद्र ऑल्सो एंड आई मेड हेल ऑफ इट, बिकॉज हम कोविड में निकलने की भी इजाजत नहीं है एट माई 93 years of age। पर मैंने काफी शोर किया, मैंने कहा ये बड़ी गलत बात है। और उमर अब्दुल्ला वहां से कहता है कि देखो जी, जम्मू वाले हमारा फिरन भी अभी कबूल नहीं करते। मैंने कहा मुझे आप डोगरा पगड़ी कहीं लगा के श्रीनगर में बताओ किसी कन्वोकेशन में, फिर मानूंगा मैं। हम आपके फिरन में आपको भी सर पर उठा लेंगे। हम ऐसी बातें करते हैं सब गड़बड़ करने के लिए, दिल साफ नहीं है इनके, इसलिए हम वो भी सफर कर रहे हैं, हम भी सफर कर रहे हैं। और हरवंश जी ने ठीक कहा, सबसे ज्यादा कश्मीरियों ने सफर करा है, मुसलमानों ने सफर करा है। वो अच्छे बच्चे हैं, मैंने बहुत फौज में मेरे साथ हैं, अभी हम भी बाहर जाते हैं, अच्छा काम करते हैं, लेकिन जब श्रीनगर में आते हैं तो पता नहीं क्या हो जाता है। कुछ इसमें भी हमारी बड़ी गलती हो रही है, किसको बताएं। मगर कश्मीरियों ने खुद भी बहुत नुकसान, कब रियलाइज करेंगे वो हम तो उनको बैठते हैं, बहुत सियाने हैं, हमसे बड़े सियाने हैं, डोगरे बड़े सीधे होते हैं। वो उनको ये भी नहीं पता लगता कि ये मेरे नुकसान की बात हो रही है। और नुकसान उठाने के बाद भी शायद नहीं समझे कि मैंने, मेरी गलती थी ये, उसको पता ही नहीं है। दिस इज सम काइंड ऑफ यू कैन से ट्रेट ऑफ ए डोगरा। बट कश्मीरी अब कहते हैं बहुत समझदार होता है, पर ये नहीं मुझे समझ आई कि वो आज तक क्यों नहीं समझ रहा कि वो, अब देखो फारूक ने कहा हम चाइना को लाएंगे, ये क्या बात है, ये दिमाग है फारूक साहब का, ये दिमाग कहाँ गया, मेरे में समझ में नहीं आ रहा। ऑनेस्टली आई एम टेलिंग, क्योंकि फारूक के साथ मैंने 40 साल गुजारे हैं, बहुत इंटेलिजेंट आदमी है, लेकिन क्या बोलता है, कभी कितनी गलत बात बोलती, पूरे जम्मू को नाराज करती है सारे को। फिर कहते हैं जम्मू में हमने रहना है, जम्मू को हमने कंट्रोल करना है, जम्मू के साथ। तो आके अभी भी उसके एनसी वाले बोलते हैं। मैंने कहा आप बात कुछ ऐसी करते हो जिसके जो हमें समझ ही नहीं आती, और फिर आप करते हो। तो ये बड़ी अच्छी बात है। और हरवंश जी आपने बड़ी, ये ट्रूथ है, असलियत यही है। लेकिन असलियत अब जब आप देखें, आज एक किताब का कोई मैंने देखा है, रिव्यू निकला है, किसी और का ओगरा ने किया है, क्वाइट फ्लोज द जेलम बाय विनय मुखोपाध्याय, 99 में उसने बंगाली में लिखी थी, अभी उसने इंग्लिश में ट्रांसलेशन किया है। he called it fiction कम हिस्ट्री। मुझे समझ नहीं पड़ती ये फिक्शन है या हिस्ट्री है, ये दोनों में एक भी नहीं है। और उसने वो बात ही नहीं करी है कि बारामूला में 4 दिन कैसे रुके, राजेंद्र सिंह का नाम ही नहीं है, पता नहीं। पर ये हिस्ट्री है या फिक्शन है? जो हिस्ट्री है वो तो कुछ और है, अगर फिक्शन है तो फिर हिस्ट्री मत बोलो, फिर हिस्ट्री मत बोलो, दोनों बातें बोलिए और हमें गुमराह कर रहे हैं। और फिर इसमें आज डोगरे से मर रहे होंगे कि ये क्या लिख गया सर, जो बंगाली क्यों लिखा है ये हरवंश जी, क्योंकि उनको पता नहीं है असलियत किसी को नहीं। आप जानते हैं कि ये जो मैं विजय को भी बताया था, अभी ये कहते हैं हम निकालेंगे, किसी किताब में नहीं लिखा, ये भी नहीं बोलते कि 22 तारीख अभी ब्लैक डे मनाया है, शुक्र है बनाया है, अभी रिकॉग्नाइज किया है कि 22 तारीख का हमला मुजफ्फराबाद में हुआ, और हमारे आदि पटन जो हिंदू थी, आदि मुस्लिम थी, उसी मुस्लिम ने आदि हिंदू मार दी। नहीं तो सवाल ही नहीं पैदा होता कि कहीं और जैक पटन, जनरल जोरावर की पटन है, वो आज तक और बरवा में जैपनी को खत्म करके आई थी। अंग्रेजों को पता था हमारे जनरल स्टाफ मेरा चीफ था, वो उसको पता था कि पलटन ये अगर आपस में नहीं लड़ेंगे तो पाकिस्तान 2 महीने भी नहीं मुजफ्फराबाद से श्रीनगर पहुंच सकता। ये पलटन थी। कोई बात नहीं करता। क्यों नहीं करता? कि वो कहेंगे देखो जी हिंदू मुस्लिम की बात है। हिंदू मुस्लिम की बात नहीं है, ये हिस्टोरिकल बात है, ये फैक्चुअल बात है। अगर मेरे ही डोगरा मुशहरा की मेरे ही हिंदू डोगरा भाइयों को रात को सोए हुए उनके वेपन लेके और कोट में रख के लाक लगा के जब भी गुम नहीं करी होती, मैं कहता हूँ 15 दिन भी उस मुजफ्फराबाद से पाकिस्तान का आर्मी डिवीजन भी आ जाता, नहीं हिल सकता। घड़ी में जाके बता दिया, कुछ भी नहीं होते हुए पूरा दिन रोक के रखता 1000 आदमी गाड़ी को। तो ये बातें लिखी नहीं है, और ये बंदा जो अभी लिख रहा है इसने ये बात ही नहीं लिखी है। अगर ये बात नहीं लिखी है तो हिस्ट्री किधर है, फिक्शन कहाँ से बनेगी? तो ऐसे आदमी भी बीच में आ जाते हैं और ये सत्यानाश कर देते हैं। और असली बातें हम लिखें, उसके लिए बेचारा लिख गया। और ये मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस की किताब में सारा लिखा हुआ है, किसी ने नहीं बोला। जनरल कलकन मेरे साथ था, वो we were together. In fact, I took over from him in the army headquarters and in the staff college elected. We were together. वो बताता था, कोई सुनता ही नहीं था। रिटायर होने के बाद बेचारे ने किताब लिखी कि मैं मुश्किल से भाग के उनको बताया जाके डिफेंस मिनिस्टर को और कुलवंत सिंह को और थापर को कि जी आपके ऊपर 21 तारीख रात को हमला होना है, आज 18 है, 3 दिन है, कुछ करो। उन्होंने कहा नहीं ये क्या कह रहे हो तुम, ये तुम माहौल कर रहे हो हमारे साथ। उन्होंने कहा नहीं नहीं माहौल नहीं, मैं पढ़ के आया हूँ, सीधी बात बता रहा हूँ। नहीं उन्होंने कहा यार पता तो करो। तो एक ने किसी ने पाकिस्तान रावलपिंडी टेलीफोन भी कर दिया कि यार तुम अटैक कर रहे हो हमारे पर। उन्होंने कहा क्या माहौल करते हो? ये हमारी आर्मी हेडक्वार्टर की हालत थी, ये हमारे अफसरों की हालत थी। वही थापर जाके चीफ बना बाद में, वही कुलवंत सिंह आर्मी कमांडर बना जाके, और डिफेंस मिनिस्टर को बता रहे हैं। डिफेंस मिनिस्टर ने यहाँ हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर उस वक्त मेजर महाजन थे, वो रात को रोज टेलीफोन करते थे मेरे बचाओ। उसको भी नहीं बताया कि हमें खबर मिली है कि 21 तारीख हमला होगा। 18 तारीख को भी नहीं बताया, 19 भी नहीं, 20 भी नहीं। 19 को मानिक शाह को साथ के भेजा, 25 को जाओ देखो। माउंटबेटन कह रहा था कुछ नहीं हो रहा, उसको पता तो उसी ने तो अटैक करवाया था ये माउंटबेटन ने। जब उन्होंने कहा तो कहते जाके पता करो, कोई रेडर होंगे। रेडर का नाम माउंटबेटन ने दिया नेहरू को, उसको सपना आना था। और जो वो था अकबर खान, उसने बोला अच्छा
I think he's lost the connection.
We've lost the connection. Just for information of everybody, I've already signed up for 14 videos for 11 hours web series on exactly what Jan Jamwal was saying. So you'll also soon have record of all these events, and उसमें जनरल साहब की 2.5 घंटे की रिकॉर्डिंग हमने करी है, which will be put into the full stories, and it will be a proper web series. अब ये कौन से OTT पे जाती है, that will decide later. But this will proliferate as much as we can amongst the Dogras.
Thank you. I think Captain Murthy, were you raising the hand to say something?
I'll not take time because we've already overshot. I'll only request Harbans ji.
Yes, please.
Harbans ji, I'll only request you कि when we meet next, I would like a precise answer from you on was it not an intelligence failure and lack of political will that destroyed the whole fabric? Next time when we meet, I would like you to start with this.
I'll begin with that. Next time I'll begin with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for this insightful session today and a beautiful discussion by everybody. This kind of discussion will only help us to know our history better. And as General Jamwal said, that some of the people who are writing the history with less knowledge or incomplete knowledge, these are the narratives which we have to counter them, and we have to correct what our history is. Thank you, and let's meet again next week.
Bye.